Okay, thank you. Yes, the rent is on First County.
Okay, thank you all for being here today. I want to say good afternoon. My name is Joe Buchanan. I know most of you from Sacramento area council governments. Finally have our AV technical details worked out. And for those of you who don't know, we are recording all of these sessions for those who can't attend. So if you have folks who you want to catch up on the project through the website, www.sacog.org sustainable, you can catch up on any of the past presentations we've had. And so today we have a great lineup where we're talking about the next steps on our project. Also, one of the other great projects that came to our region, the Next Economy, which is really looking forward into what happens after this project, and then the great work that is happening with Sierra Health Foundation. So I want to thank those folks for being here today. Wanted to just start with a quick update on the Metropolitan Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategy that most of you have heard about for many years now. So how many have been to an MTP workshop in the room? So most of you. And so you are pretty familiar with what's in the transportation plan. You know why we do the MTP. You know that this time we're doing the Sustainable Community Strategy. But we wanted to just go through actually what came out into the plan and how your comments have helped improve the plan as we move forward. So the MTP process to date, you know that it took us several years to get through this planning process, and it's a continuous process we do at SACOG. So the comments we received on this plan before the board adoption that just happened in April really help us improve the next cycle. And so we want to thank you all for your participation in the process. And we really had a nice celebration at SACOG when we had that adoption, because we really feel like this is opening the door to a new era that we're beginning to talk about today. The plan itself was how do we do more with less, and this was really the first time our region had confronted a shrinking budget in the future and a shrinking growth pattern in the future for the planning process. But our board really wanted to see us work on maintenance and rehabilitation, and so that is the biggest centerpiece of our plan, and something to consider as we think about how we are implementing this plan through the Sustainable Community Strategy, through the work that we'll be talking about today on the grant. What in those maintenance and rehabilitation projects can we leverage to help improve the access in our region? Road and capital projects are another big portion of the plan, but these are again leveraged by that maintenance and operations budget, because many of the operational improvements can actually help increase the capacity of our roads and increase the efficiency of our roads. But that we still do need those road and capital operations projects to keep our transportation system moving. The transit system is the second biggest line item in our plan at $11 billion, and that is important to improve the air quality and really helped us meet the air quality goals set forth in SB 375. Pedestrian and bike, while it looks small, is again leveraged by that maintenance and operations budget, because there are new requirements on rehabilitating roads that we are having in our region, where we will be making more complete streets as a part of maintenance projects. And so this is really for new capital projects within the plan itself. Planning and program enhancements, the TDM programs, this is what this covers, the Spare the Air programs that keep us all informed about the goals of our plan, about the air quality in our region, and about all the great programs we have, like May's Bike Month, which kicked off just yesterday. So these are all funded through this planning and enhancements project. But really, we want to focus on what our plan is doing, and our plan is improving the air quality of our region. This is the first plan that actually sees a reduction in the congested vehicle miles of travel in our region, and really is groundbreaking within California for us to see a plan that reduces it from current conditions today. The way it does that is by leveraging land use, and this is a key part of the sustainable community strategy. A key part of what we're here to discuss is how do we revitalize the land use near transportation investments. And so how do we make the best use of our transit corridors to see that growth near transit, to get that ridership near transit that helps improve the air quality. And the way we do that is by improving transit in the future. And so this is one graph. How many remember this from the workshops? Oh good, I can go through it again. One, Dave. So in the current state of the world, we have 126,000 homes near transit and 261,000 jobs near transit. By increasing the homes near transit in the future, we get the 114,000 homes, 139,000 jobs near transit in the future. But by improving the transit system with the ridership, we bring transit closer to existing homes of 157,000 existing homes and 240,000 existing jobs. And so it's really those transit improvements that all of our participation in this plan helps us achieve in the future that makes this plan work. We are investing significantly in our region, our jurisdictions are investing significantly in the growth near transit in the centers and corridors, and bringing quite a bit of jobs. Over half of the jobs go into existing established communities. The housing mix in the centers and corridors really changes from what we have today to really a denser mix in the future, which again makes for those transit-oriented developments successful. And as we move forward into the workshops, we'll be exploring what is success, how do we achieve success in these transit-oriented development communities. The plan saves a significant amount of farmland from what we've seen in the past. And so the new growth by being focused in the established communities in those centers and corridors saves significant farmland from what we've seen in the past, where in the past we consumed 333 acres of farmland. In the future, over the same period of time, we're showing a plan that has significant population increase per every 1,000 residents. We're only adding losing 42 acres of farmland in the future. Again, the way that this plan works, the focus of it is by increasing the efficiency of our current transit system. The increased fare box recovery that we are forecasting in the transit plan helps pay for increased transit service hours. And so the fare box recovery increases significantly from current levels of below 20% to over 40% in the future. This helps us meet our greenhouse gas reduction targets, and we actually we're able to meet those that were set by the regions, and so that we see a decrease both by 2010 and by 2035 that help us meet those greenhouse gas goals. Really, the point of this all is to increase access to the job centers and begin to leverage our transportation system, our transportation investment that we've made over the past 50 years in this region. And that's what you're here to help us do today, is how do we realize that investment and maximize the efficiency of the land uses near transportation. The comment period for the MTP, we received 19 letters on the environmental document itself. We wanted to just fill you in on that, since we haven't visited with this group since the comment period closed. And the comments on this really just helped us clarify the environmental document itself. The comments didn't require changes to the EIR conclusions, and we did not have to recirculate, and really helped us focus on the comments to the plan itself. And so we received 87 letters on the plan itself, over 500 individual comments, with the aim of making the plan better. And we were really taking these to heart already. we did change policies and strategies in the plan. So when you look at the website, you will see some changes to the plan itself, to the policies and strategies. But really the biggest focus of these was requesting commitment to research and to new efforts, which is exciting for us because we want to remain on the leading edge of the country for transportation research and investment. So based on your comments, there were changes made to the policies and strategies in the MTP, some strengthening of policies and strategies, but really a stronger consideration of the principles, which helped our board focus on what those policies and strategies were saying, and help us focus on what our future research will be at SACOG. And so the future direction, based on your comments, relate to what we're talking about here today. And so we are looking more at public health, safety, social equity, affordable housing, and how do we plan for a region that is healthier and where we minimize the negative impacts of the transportation system. And I see some great partners in the room to help us do that. The board has already authorized us to apply for this, and we've heard hopefully good news coming on our Strategic Growth Council grant application, where we'll actually be beginning to investigate some of these topics in preparation of our next plan update in 2016. We are committed to continued work towards partnerships, and many of you know that because you're on the phone with us several times a month, talking about where we could find funding to fund this strategy or that funding strategy. So we really thank you for your time as we move ahead on this. So I know I ran through that quickly, but as many of you have seen this MTP from the infancy, I didn't want to get too down into the details of the past. But are there any questions on the process or where we're going with the Metropolitan Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategy? Great. Well, the next step we wanted to tell you about, since it's been quite a while since we've checked in, is the workshops that are coming up. So we really are in the second big phase of the grant, launching today, and there are two items that are ahead for us. One is, you'll recall, we have 5 case study areas that were selected to help us implement the Sustainable Community Strategy. And so the first 2 workshops are coming up at 2 of those case study areas. And for just to back up a little, the case study areas were the Mather Mills Light Rail Station and the Manlove Light Rail Station. Those are in the County of Sacramento and the City of Rancho Cordova. Manlove, sorry, is in County of Sacramento, Mather Mills, City of Rancho Cordova. In the City of West Sacramento, we have the Washington Plan area. We expect to be working with them in the fall. In the City of Sacramento, we have the R Street Corridor, continuing work in that planning area. And we expect that workshops to happen there in the fall. And then there was a joint area submitted by Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency and the city and the county, which is the Fruitridge Stockton area. And we're working with the California Endowment, the Building Healthy Communities project down in that area, to continue their great work. So as we move ahead, we are looking at working with our member jurisdictions to maximize their outreach, to maximize the work that they're already doing in these communities. So this is an additive process where, for example, in the Folsom Boulevard corridor, the County of Sacramento and City of Rancho Cordova had partnered on a Strategic Growth Council grant to look at infrastructure planning to realize, to prepare for the development that we're showing in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategy. So we are partnering with that project to conduct these workshops, and I'll get into the goals and the outcomes we expect from those workshops in just a moment. But as we move ahead in the R Street corridor, where they're looking at a new business improvement district for the businesses in that corridor, to really help sustain the investment that's been made there. In the Washington neighborhood in West Sacramento, where they have a community challenge grant to help do similar things that our street is doing. We're partnering with these projects to, one, do the environmental work and work with them on the environmental side, where they're going to do the environmental work for the sustainable community strategy that helps clear the housing, the residential and mixed-use projects that are in those areas and that are ready to go for development. And so that's one of the benefits of Senate Bill 375 is that environmental streamlining. And then two, to help the community envision what a transit-oriented development can achieve for them. Because as we know, it's been difficult economic times in this region. And so all development can really help increase the opportunities and the access for the residents of that community, but then also residents who travel to that community from other transit stops along the corridors.
Joe, sorry, there's a minor typo. I just want to make sure everybody who wrote down the dates, it's May 23rd and 24th.
Oh,
so
sorry, thank you.
Please check your notes, make sure you got the right date. Sorry.
So the workshops will be on 2 evenings, back to back, in both areas. And so we'll be the 23rd and 24th of May, and we're going to be at the Lavu there on Folsom Boulevard. The Mather Mills workshop will be on 13th and 14th, and so these are both, I believe, Wednesday and Thursday nights. We'll be holding the workshops. We have a great program we're working on with the County of Sacramento and their partners, where we'll be starting each night, and you'll hear a little bit about that today, with walk audits and focused on place one night and then focused on infrastructure the other night. But there will be exercises within the workshop itself for those who can't be participating in those walking tours of the areas. So really starting each night with a walking tour of the area, talking about the community itself, one night talking about what types of places can help improve the community, and then the second night talking about what types of infrastructure improvements can help improve access to those places. The program itself will have speakers each night, but then also table exercises where we'll have our partners in the room and the partners from the jurisdictions talking about what's happening in the community, because really this is one stop along the way towards implementation. Is that we started in the Folsom Boulevard corridor back in the 80s when light rail was first constructed, and then continued into the 90s when the light rail was expanded. Now we're trying to realize more benefit from that investment by getting the land use activated around that transportation system. So as I said, we're using 2 grants. This is just a graphic that we prepared. Actually, Adrian Engel, one of our grant partners, prepared it for us. And it shows how the 2 grants, the case study areas that I just mentioned, are working together. So the county grant is actually considering 5 light rail stations in the Folsom Boulevard corridor, looking at infrastructure. 2 of those are included in our grant, as you see with the blue square around those red bubbles. And then the other 3 areas that I mentioned that we'll be working with and are developing projects with those jurisdictions for the coming months are shown in the blue boxes there. The outcomes from the grant, we as I said, want to demonstrate how TOD can contribute to building a complete community. That many people, as we've gone through the years, have maybe lost a little hope in the vision, and so we want to, one, tell people what their jurisdictions have done over these years, and how a lot of the below ground work has been happening. There's a great interchange improvement coming for Watt Avenue. That's going to be a demonstration project for the whole country with a multimodal interchange at Watt and US 50. Many people haven't heard about that project. We'll be showing how that we're leveraging the public investment to prepare for the land use, because it takes a long time to prepare for this, and it's easy for the community to lose interest along the way. But then also really showing how increasing the opportunities, increasing the investment in those areas can help benefit the disadvantaged communities in most of these areas. The outcomes really to show, as I said, you can demonstrate this eco streamlining that is contained in Senate Bill 375 can be used to advance that development near transit and then maximize the existing investment in the corridor. Some of the strategies that we're using to achieve that is improving those pedestrian and bicycle connections and really focusing on what you'll hear about today, which is active transportation wherever we can, because that has multiple benefits. Not only does it provide more ridership for the transportation system that I mentioned that we can then use to provide more transportation, but it really helps the community itself, have that active lifestyle and has many good health outcomes that we're hearing more about in our society today. But to activate those areas, we realize we have to identify what are the gaps, what are the barriers that have been there in the past to transportation, into that active transportation, and realizing that we can't just will people to walk out there, that there are actual reasons behind what make a nice walking environment, and how do we get the investment working to make that walkable environment. We'll be identifying opportunity parcels for that transit-oriented development, and so that's really key to achieve development in any area is to identify those catalyst projects through this process, and then assessing the existing conditions to identify what the capacity deficiencies are in the underground infrastructure system, and then also in the above ground infrastructure system. So really want to encourage you to tell those stakeholders that you have in your groups back at your offices to come participate in the workshop. We'll be working with what I see many of you, several of you in the room, on presentations as we move ahead, and we really look forward to having your participation in this process. The goals are, again, to educate the community about the benefits of transit-oriented development, how it's not just for the transportation system, but for the health benefits itself, and then to collect the community data on making sure that we're grounded in what the community vision is for their areas. Also highlighting the ongoing efforts, as I mentioned, in the process, and then getting input for an action plan, which is a deliverable from our HUD grant, where we will be writing up a action plan that involves not only us and the jurisdiction, but the community in how do we really achieve success in these areas, and really working with a diverse group of stakeholders as we move ahead. So any questions on the workshop process coming up?
Well, will the workshops be complimentary or repetitive for 2 days?
So each workshop is on a particular community, and so the 2 nights themselves will be complimentary. One night we're talking about places, and the other night we're talking about infrastructure. And so we're building the agenda so that we can break it up into 2 groups, because we realize that some folks might be more place-oriented, and some groups are definitely more infrastructure-oriented. But really, we view it as an education process, as to, you need to have the places identified, the economic development, the community development in an area, to then fund the infrastructure. The infrastructure itself provides access to those places as well. And so the 2 work hand in hand to say, how do you achieve success in these transit-oriented development sites?
One of the challenges I think we have in some of the areas is the recalcitrance of the property owners to get engaged in the process. And a lot of the property owners, they've been there, they've done it, they've seen things happen in the neighborhood, and they're not buying into the concept that development is going to happen anytime soon, and their property is appropriate for these high-density transit-oriented projects. How do you engage the property owners and get them involved in the process and get their buy-in so that we have a good connection between the property owners and the agency, the jurisdiction where we work.
Yeah, and that's a great point. We've heard that in several of the sites. And so one piece we're working with, and I'd love to hear your reaction to these, is first the education that there's a lot of progress that's being made in all of these areas. And sure, it takes time to get there, but the investment is being made over time, and we are achieving the infrastructure that is needed to support the development, both above ground and below ground. But then also through the catalyst sites is that once you see success happen in one place, then others begin to say, well, I could do something as well. And so you know from your experience that there's a great amount of peer pressure in community development as to once one property is going, then the interest begins to happen. But our first piece is to solicit the property owners to come to these workshops, to be involved in the process, and if it takes side meetings with them, we're happy to do that. And then really the second piece is just that education process, that there is investment happening and there is interest in the community to see a larger vision for this area. And so that oftentimes if you connect in the residents to the property owners, is what we're hoping can help realize some success.
I would just say it might feel like artificial momentum, either to show that the community really wants something or infrastructure is planned and coming. But with no other game in town, we can try to leverage that momentum anywhere we can. So each of these sites has an infrastructure investment that's planned. And if there's no other development in this market at this time, then what can we try to leverage in terms of streamlining some community consensus and infrastructure investment that could be leveraged where at least the developer isn't going to have to bear a more heavy infrastructure cost down the road. Is that another strategy?
Yeah.
I think it's all helpful and maybe collecting all these pieces together in a pot and saying, okay, property owner, what do you need to make this property developable? Sometimes it's infrastructure, because in some of these areas the infrastructure is pretty old.
Yeah, it could be financing. It could be that we don't have success we can point to right now, which was the case with Blueprint. So people will say, well, I don't really believe that these amenities will come with this level of density. Well, in that case, 10 years ago, we had to give visual examples from other regions. But by hook or by crook, we will get a success in our own region to point to. It may be in some of these workshops that we have to draw on ULI or some of our other steering committee partners to tell some stories of regions like us that have realized success, so people might have a little more market confidence that the financing will pencil out and we can find some seed money for it.
Any other questions? Well, we'll look forward to seeing you on May 23rd, the first workshop. And please stay tuned as we develop more workshops. We'll certainly use the email system if we don't have a meeting before then to announce where those sites will be. So next up, I want to introduce Bill Mueller, who I believe most of us know in the room, but Bill's going to be talking to us about the next steps on the Next Economy project, which is a great project that's really going to help us at the larger level realize the vision in the sustainable community strategy.
Thanks, Joe. Hi, everybody. How are you? Good. Good. So I have the good fortune of representing the work of many, many people. And many people have come together to focus on the fact that our region's economy is not performing as we would all like it. I think many of you have probably heard the statistic, but the Sacramento region, a 6-county region, 2.3 million people, we have about 845,000 people that are employed in that region. We've lost 145,000 jobs since the peak in 2007, so we faced a significant loss in jobs. And one of the reasons for that is that there's been a global tidal wave that has hit the entire business community, but particularly housing and banking, and it's had a profound effect on government as well. And because we're the center of government for the state of California, and we have had a very large construction industry, we have been significantly hard hit. So organizations that are committed to economic development at a regional level came together last year, and they are the Sacramento Metro Chamber of Commerce, the Sacramento Area Commerce and Trade Organization that recruits businesses to the Sacramento area, and the Technology Accelerator organization called SARTA, the Sacramento Area Regional Technology Alliance, and the organization that I'm part of, Valley Vision. They all came together, their business leaders came together and said, we don't like the pattern that is existing, and we want to break it. We want to try to move the economy in a different way. And it's sort of an audacious goal because the Sacramento region's economy is a $97 billion economy. It's massive. But we know that over the last several quarters, it hasn't been in positive job producing qualities. And so what our aim is to diversify the economy, is to continue to focus on the fact that we need the construction industry to thrive, that we need government to be able to care for us, to teach us, to make sure that the least among us are cared for. But we also need to make sure that we're investing in our strengths in areas like information technology, strengths like agriculture, strengths like healthcare, and cutting-edge healthcare and the study of genomics. What we may not necessarily realize is that UC Davis is one of the foremost universities in the world these days in the study of genes and gene sequencing and understanding the study of genomics. They just received a master agreement with the largest genomics company based in China that is investing in sharing technology, and it's really changing the frontiers of healthcare. It's changing the frontiers of energy by having a better understanding of the natural world. So we need to look for ways that we can lift up those aspects of our economy and diversify it, and make sure that we have an economic development strategy that is supporting base industries, those big job creators that also support our service economy, and making sure that we're not just creating jobs for those that are at the upper end of the wealth spectrum, but also making sure that we are providing economic opportunity for all communities. And so we've done our best with Next Economy to create a very open process. And Next Economy is sort of that response. So over the, let's see here. Down below. Okay, thanks. So over the last 11 months, we got together about 11 months ago. We have formed a coalition of over 260 cities and counties, chambers of commerce, economic development organizations, businesses, educational institutions, utilities. We have a very formidable coalition that is built and it's growing. We fielded a leadership group and a steering committee that is very broadly based, that represents different segments of our community focused on economic development and job creation. We've set out to raise $250,000, and we're edging in close to the $200,000 goal. Funding is coming in $5,000 and $10,000 increments, sometimes a little bit more, from foundations, from businesses, from banks and utilities that want to invest in ways that grow our economy, that make the economic pie bigger. We've completed a comprehensive research and analysis plan, so we've taken a hard look at how our economy has radically shifted since 2007. We've looked at our competitive state in comparison to other sort of competitor regions like Silicon Valley, San Diego, Portland, Phoenix, and others. we've looked at something that we're calling our regional economic ecosystem, which economic developers are increasingly using as sort of the metaphor for how we create an ecosystem that helps businesses thrive, because we know that businesses need money, and they need infrastructure, and they need talent. And so we sort of looked through that lens at the Sacramento region and said, how well are we doing in those areas? And we're sort of giving ourselves a report card, and we want to change the way that we do economic development in the Sacramento region, and Next Economy is going to sort of map that out. We have convened many work sessions. The State of the Region held by the Metro Chamber had close to 500 people. Back in August, we've held 2 regional forums. Our last one in Folsom, we had 400 participants. The one coming up this Friday that I'm hoping that all of you are aware of, and if not, please be our guest. It's a free event. It'll be from 9 to noon at Sac State. We'll be bringing some of this information and bringing you clicker technology so that you can weigh in on the strategies that are emerging. We've held a number of work group meetings that I'll talk about in just a moment. And we've been very methodical in doing outreach to the extent that we can. As we're putting together the plan, we're also touching base with a host of organizations. We're really going to be doing more of that come summertime. Once the draft plan hits the streets, we want to go out and consult with people and groups and organizations in the Sacramento region and get their feedback as we go forward. What we've done as part of this process is we've identified 5 major business clusters. And we know that outside of government and construction, that we have a particular economic strength in food and agriculture, advanced manufacturing, information and communications technology, health and life sciences, and clean energy technology. So these are the areas that the economic data are showing that we have a particular competitive advantage. It might be knowledge, it might be a concentration of businesses, it might be that we have a particular expertise that is unmatched. But these are sort of the areas that have surfaced through this research. So we've put together work groups in each of those areas, and each of those work groups since February has met several times. We've pulled together experts in those domains and asked them what are the impediments that they face, what are the opportunities that we might sort of capitalize on. And then we've also sort of created work groups that cut across all of those particular areas. And there's one in particular that has had a lot of interest and excitement. It's an innovation work group, and it's chartered with looking at ways that we can convene money, both public money, private money, in debt and in equity pools, because we've heard consistently through this process the challenge of entrepreneurs, small businesses, or businesses that are growing to scale to have access to money. And so we are convening banks, credit unions, financiers, venture capitalists, and beginning to develop some fairly innovative ways that we think that rather than going separately, that by grouping together we can sort of break into and create new pools of debt and equity financing. We're also looking at technology transfer. I mentioned that UC Davis is really an amazing university in many respects. I mentioned its leadership in genomics, but also in water and in agriculture and in the environmental sciences. I was not aware before this project that they are, and Chris might be able to help me with this, but the last statistic I saw is that last year their annual research budget was $687 million. It outpaces Berkeley, which is held up as the state's sort of pinnacle research and development university. Our university here in our hometown does better, and it is very widely recognized. So I think We have this amazing university that's probably better known outside our region than perhaps inside for its leadership. We need to figure out how we can sort of work more closely with them and help transfer that technology for societal benefit. Regional identity has frequently come up in these conversations, and this isn't necessarily a job creator, but it is something that is really important. When we talk about Sacramento to the outside world, Sacramento in some parts of the state is actually a bad name because they associate it with a budget that won't get passed and lawmakers that don't seem to get along. So how can we change that? So focusing on that is also important. Education and workforce is another area. This might be a little bit difficult to see, but I wanted to preview with you what our research is telling us, both the qualitative research and the quantitative research over the last 11 months. We've identified what we believe are the 8 economic drivers that if we focus in these areas over the next 5 to 10 years, that we are going to be able to grow the 130,000 jobs that we need to get back into positive territory. And you can see them, and I'll read them from sort of left to right, but the importance that the business community has in accessing capital is one of the paramount issues. And so growing private and public capital investment pools are very important. Increasing entrepreneur and small business support. How many people know how many businesses there are in the 6-county region? Any venturing a guess? How many businesses? There's 70,000 businesses in the Sacramento region. How many would you say are over 1,000 employees? How many of those do you think we have? You said 5? So it's 22. 22 businesses have over 1,000 employees. So a startling statistic, but actually this holds up for most regions. Guess how many businesses we have out of that 70,000 that have 4 or fewer employees? I didn't hear. 50,000. 50,000? Yeah, it's 49,000. 49,000 businesses, 4 people or less in the Sacramento region. So we need to do a really good job of supporting new entrepreneurs that want to start their business, that want to grow their business. And we found through our research that we need to do a better job, that compared to other regions, we don't have the capacity or the support for them. Educating, attracting, and retaining talent, focusing on business infrastructure, roads and transit, and all of the various infrastructure, and also our cultural infrastructure, because importantly, we need to focus on our theaters and our arts and our museums. Expanding access to global markets. Very critical in a world that increasingly is global. And the center of gravity for our economy has really shifted eastward. How do we connect in a much greater degree there? Because there is still quite a bit of economic activity there. Streamlining regulations at all levels, capitalizing on our university strengths, so sort of getting back to UC Davis, but also to a great extent, Sacramento State, Los Rios Community College District, and our other community college districts are private universities like Drexel and the University of the Pacific. Inspiring a new regional image. So these are the 8 components that we think that working together can help us lead out of this strategy. And so behind the scenes, we're working on developing strategies behind each one of these. And we also have developed some through the work of the people that are participating in Next Economy, some big, hairy, audacious goals, or BHAGs. And so we have about 6 of those that we've identified, and we want to ask you about them on Friday, which ones you think make sense. And some of them focus on agriculture, some of them focus on healthcare, but how we could really sort of break through and create some transformative strategies. I think I've pretty much mentioned this. I think the one thing that I would sort of emphasize is that we will have a draft plan released within the next few months. So we're targeting June 30th for a draft plan to come out. And it's just the beginning of the process. While we'll have it backed up with research and a lot of input up to this point, we really are hoping that it will be owned by the variety of organizations in town, and not just the economic development organizations, traditional economic development organizations, but cities and counties and others, including chambers of commerce and other community organizations. These are some key dates that I'll leave you with. Again, our next Economy Regional Forum this Friday. The Linking Education and Economic Development Convergence event is on May 11th. They're going to be focusing on the workforce for the next economy and previewing some of the work there. There is a statewide economic summit that Next Economy is funneling up into. It's in Santa Clara, and it involves the same sort of clicker technology. It's being hosted by the California Stewardship Network and by California Forward, and Chris Benner is among the leaders that are focusing on workforce, infrastructure, innovation, and a host of others, so that we can hopefully have some common ground that we can implement and advocate in the state capital that could, again, sort of unleash job creation and investment in the Sacramento region. And then finally, the two other dates, Roseville 2012, which will focus on South Placer's economic development, and the State of the Region, which will focus on civic amenities, and it's hosted by the Metro Chamber. So with that, I welcome any questions. Yes? Hi.
So if you go back to your slide that had the drivers,
Yeah.
it was interesting to me to know that there really is nothing called out here that relates to sustainability or environmental protection. And I wondered if you could speak to that. I would assume that there's a thought that it's embedded into many of them. However, its absence here is, I think, pretty striking.
Okay. Well, I think you answered it in the same way that I would answer, which is that it is embedded in all of these things. Valley Vision's mission is one of the project proponents. We're a triple bottom line organization, so we believe in economic prosperity, social equity, and environmental sustainability. And so we've infused that in the plan, and we'll approach it in that way. What I would tell you is that this plan is really focused specifically on job creation, and so it's really sort of focused on that lens across the board. It is our hope that once this plan hits the streets, that when it gets closer to the ground, because we're sort of still at the 30,000 foot level, that we'll be focusing in on ways to carry out, for example, the business infrastructure in a way that is environmentally sustainable. We'll be, because we're fellow travelers with SACOG, looking at ways to implement it consistent with the blueprint and other matters. So while it's not here, it is here. It's just not expressed, you know, at this level, I would say.
I would just like to comment on the steering committee discussion that the Next Economy folks had about these economic drivers that had more narrative within each. Because it was a great discussion about attract, educate, and retain talent that had to do with some of our environmental assets being the types of amenities that make this the kind of community that retains talent and attracts folks that have a high value on that, or entrepreneurial, creative class. And I would say the same thing is true in some of the other the other clusters. So it might just be that as you dig down into those narrative handouts off this slide, that we need to be more explicit so that each of the partners recognize that that's a critical component to our regional branding, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point. Any other thoughts or questions? Yes?
Well, you emphasize UC Davis, but you mentioned the community college. I understand that the community colleges are really doing a good job when it comes to job creation, developing skills for the folks that have to implement what the thinkers come up with. So.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And I probably spent a little bit too much airtime on UC Davis. It's because Chris Benner's.
Covered the gap into the community.
But I think the community colleges are an investor in Next Economy. So Bryce Harris is one of those leadership members. So of the 6, he is the Dean of Higher Education in the Sacramento region. He's been longest in this position. And so he's there representing higher education, not only the community colleges, but Sacramento State, the privates, as well as UC Davis. And you're right, by mission, community colleges are our workforce development partners. They, more so than Sac State and UC Davis, are really committed to and have the capacity to adjust to the changing market conditions. And I think what Chancellor Harris has been able to do is be able to create programs and curriculum that have really sort of adjusted to the economic or the business drivers. So they have really extensive nursing programs. They have energy and clean tech programs that have been really necessary for those particular sectors. So you're absolutely right. They are a critical tool and component and partner in all of this. Yes?
I just wanted to add to what the woman in the back said. I would challenge you to include more explicitly how all of these economic drivers are impacted by equity and how equity impacts them. Where are low-income communities, communities of color, folks with disabilities, youth under 18, how do they fit in?
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're talking about educating and retraining talent on there, who is that talent? How can you get people that aren't included in there? And just make that really explicit in this plan where it's not going to help everyone in the region.
It's a great point. And it's something that we consistently hear, and we need to consistently hear it. So I would encourage you to tell not only me and this forum, but also tell the Metro Chamber and SACTO and the other economic development organizations, especially the economic developers of cities and counties that are at the table. They need to hear this as well. So thank you. Okay, with that, I'll turn it back to Joe. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. We look forward to Friday and then all of the work ahead. Next up, I wanted to introduce Terry Duarte, who many of you know from Walk Sacramento, a great nonprofit in our region that promotes active transportation.
Thank you, Joe. And Bill, that was a very interesting presentation. I was greatly encouraged by it. My presentation is going to be significantly different. I'm going to be talking about a NITI grant that we received to help support the workshops that are going on that Joe was mentioning. And I'm going to use my cheat sheets here so that I sound like I know what I'm talking about. Just for those of you who aren't familiar with Walk Sacramento, we are a nonprofit dedicated to making it safe and convenient to walk throughout the Sacramento region. And we're excited to be working with HUD to support your work in creating more complete communities and to increase sustainable transportation options. As Joe mentioned, this work is part of several larger initiatives of the California Endowment, the U.S. Housing and Urban Development Department, and the County of Sacramento, all working together to create a more sustainable community. And so what we're going to be doing is looking specifically at 3 transit station areas to make them more accessible on foot and bicycle. We're going to be looking at the Manlove Station area, the Mather Mills Station area, and the R Street corridor. Many people don't realize that because we've been designing for automobile movement almost exclusively in the past 60 years, that there are very poor connections often to transit stations if you're on foot or on bicycle. And this project seeks to improve that situation. So as Joe mentioned, the community workshops are coming up, and we're going to be working with SACOG to enhance the community outreach. So we're going to be working specifically with youth. This is a group that's traditionally underrepresented in community development discussions. We're going to provide them with education and engage them to participate in these community workshops so that we can get their input on how to develop the communities around the transit stations. Now, why this project? What we're doing is we're hoping to build on what's already being done so that people living near the light rail stations can easily leave their homes and get to work, to shopping, and to other destinations on light rail without using a car. Obviously, this will leverage the work of SACOG in accelerating transit-oriented development through its HUD grant, and also will support and leverage the work of Sacramento County in its work to develop the infrastructure around the light rail stations, which is to facilitate denser development and to improve pedestrian and bike connections. But there's also, we're working with youth for two specific reasons. One is the compelling health reasons. We're seeing problems among youth, health problems among youth that have evolved partly out of the transportation choices that we've made in the past 60 years. Children today are expected for the first time to have an average lifespan shorter than those of their parents because they are developing chronic diseases that normally come with aging, such as diabetes, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol, at a younger and younger age. And so they're developing medical conditions that are requiring medical treatment, while the simpler, better solution would be to assure that they get plenty of exercise. So people in public health see the possibilities to improve children's health by getting them walking and biking again. And finally, while of course it's true that today's youth are tomorrow's leaders, we're also in the very fortuitous situation that there is a great interest among today's youth in sustainable transportation. A report released 2 weeks ago showed that for a variety of reasons, including changes in values and preferences among this generation, that young people today have less desire to own vehicles and even to get their driver's license than in the past. And so they are driving significantly less. And they're interested in walking, biking, and transit use. So that's all in our favor. We really want to capitalize on that interest among youth. So we plan to visit local high schools, such as George Washington Carver School of the Arts and Science. It's a charter school, and it happens to be located sort of in the Rosemont area, and it happens to be located near 2 of the light rail stations. And what we'll do is we'll be visiting classes to introduce the project and offer it as a community service project or an after-school project. We'll talk about the issues of pedestrian safety, access to transit, transit schedules, transit frequencies, etc. And we'll talk about what walkability is, what makes an area safe and inviting for walking. We're actually going to train them on the specifics of what to look for in a walk audit in the area immediately surrounding the transit area. Are there sidewalks and walk spaces near the stop? What obstructions are there? What is the situation with crosswalks? Are there pedestrian signals? Are there pedestrian activated crossing signals? Is there pedestrian countdown timing to allow pedestrians to get across? How readable are the signs around the stops? And is there shade and shelter from the sun? And then we'll be encouraging them to look at the area up to a half mile around each of the transit stations. Are there safe routes to get there? Are there measures in place to control the speeds of vehicles? Is it easy to follow a route to try and get to the transit station? And are there bike lanes and other infrastructure where they're needed? So then we'll be taking a practice walk around the school, and then we'll be giving them transit passes and lunch money and invite them to go from the transit station of their choice to the 65th Street light rail station, where we'll invite them to have lunch and then return. And with their smartphones, take photos and videos all along the way. We're going to ask them to photo and video not just what they see in terms of the conditions to document that, but also to interview each other on video. What goods and services do you think are needed that aren't here? What would encourage you to ride transit more? What are you willing to do to make your community more walkable, more bikeable, and more transit friendly? While they're riding and walking, we're going to encourage them in real time to post their photos and videos directly onto a Facebook page that we're going to create. And we'll also ask them to email their photos to us at Walk Sacramento, where we'll review them and catalog them. In another meeting, we'll get them back all together again. We'll debrief, we'll look at the photos and videos, we'll note what are their key findings, their key recommendations, and then we'll train them on how to draft a report and how to make a presentation at the big community workshop, the ones that are going to be held in May and June. So at the workshops, they will give their presentations and they'll participate in the group discussions in the workshops, probably go on the walk audits again, and they'll present their recommendations for improving transit access on foot and on bicycle. And they'll also give input using the MetroQuest software that SACOG will be using to collect community input. We want our communities to be able to accommodate travel for anyone from age 8 years to 80 years. And we see that educating youth, getting their input, and increasing their sense of ownership of conditions in their communities will greatly help the goals of this project. Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes.
I'm curious if you have a component of MC within it that will let them address crime in these areas and how safe they feel executing all the other stuff.
Right, that will definitely be an issue that will come up, and we'll definitely talk about that.
But not a reporting topic currently.
But not reporting on it?
Not a reporting topic currently, right?
Yeah, you know, the best thing that we can do other than to enhance police presence is to reduce crime through safety in numbers. That is, the more people are walking and biking and outside of their cars in a community, the less likely crime is to happen. But also to look at measures that, they call it crime prevention through environmental design. So we may bring in, if we hear that crime is a common theme, we may ask to take a look at what kinds of environmental design measures can we take to reduce the incidence of crime. Does that answer your question?
A little bit, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Terry, you're familiar with these areas. What might you forecast that we'll find out?
I think you're going to see a lot of absence of sidewalks. I think you're going to see places for vehicles to park, but no way to physically get on foot, or especially if you're rolling something, whether it's a wheelchair or a cart or a bike. I think you're going to find absence of bike parking. I think you're going to find high volume traffic. I think you're going to find roadways near there without good crossing, safe crossings to get across roadways. Those are just a few things I can think of. Rebecca?
I'd just like to give you a shout out for engaging the youth so uniquely, because we've talked a lot about how do we bring the youth to this conversation. I now have teenagers who always come, oh, that's not cool, that's not cool. But they are a very specific audience that we need to be thinking about, because they have limited transportation access just by the nature of their age. But if you add some of our current economic conditions, they're very hard hit, and they become, there are fewer opportunities to access to any activity, employment, education, what have you, and so I'm really excited to hear what we're going to learn from the students and their perspective.
Yes, thank you for bringing up that point. Well said. Yes, Rick.
Well, I think this is wonderful, but the seniors are
They go together, right?
They go together. But I just wondered if you are going to try to make these young folks more sensitive to the dilemma and the needs of the seniors in their community. Grandma, her lack of access and ability to get around. Because I think, it's bottom up, they can do a lot of good in that area.
I think that is a great idea. I'm going to write that down. Take that to the workshop.
Do you want to add that one, the partnership with AARP for these? Terry's actually started the work on that for us as well.
Right.
Help us out with that.
We are working with AARP to bring great numbers of seniors to the community workshops, so that we're hoping to get input through that, through our AARP connection, to bring large numbers of people to the workshops. Thank you, Monica.
There's actually a senior center right across the street from Carver. High
Oh.
school, maybe bring a walk or something, go over talk to them.
That's good to know. Thank you. I'll write that one down too. Other questions, comments? Thank you for your suggestions. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Terry. And the topic she mentioned, safety through environmental design, will be a part of the Watt Manlove workshop. And so we will also have topics on crime discussed in the workshops themselves, so that is something we're aware of, is one of those barriers that we see to active transportation, is feeling safe in the community. So next I want to introduce Diane Lofield from the Sierra Health Foundation. Sierra Health Foundation is, for those of you who don't know, a private foundation in the region whose mission is to invest and serve as a catalyst for partnerships to promote and improve health and improve the quality of life in the region. And Diane is their Vice President of Programs and Partnerships, and we're really glad she's able to join us today and tell us about their work. Diane?
Good afternoon, everyone. Following Bill and Terry is really difficult, and preceding dinner. So I hope you'll engage in conversation and work with me. But first of all, I just want to thank SACOG for inviting me to present. And we have some new work that we are embarking on, so it's always exciting to share that. And mostly because, just given what I saw from the presentations earlier, I think there's some real opportunities to partner and work together. And I'd be very curious from all of your perspective if you see that as well. Here we go. So thank you, Joe, describing Sierra Health Foundation. One thing that's especially exciting today when I look out in the group, that these are actually not a lot of familiar faces. And so it may be that a number of you are not familiar with Sierra Health Foundation, and we're a modest foundation here in the region. We serve 26 counties actually, from the Oregon border to Nevada and down through Stanislaus County. Over the 25-year history, distribute about $85 million in funds, and a lot of that actually goes to the Sacramento region because of just that's where our population resides. Given that, though, we also have a real commitment to serve the rural areas within our region who don't have a lot of resources, and there aren't a lot of foundations in Northern California, and so we have a commitment to serve the rural counties within our region as well. These are some of the programs that I put up there, and I'm not going to talk about all of them. A lot of our information, we try to put just everything we can on our website, but there's about 6 of them that I do want to talk about. Bill, you talked about, gave a really great summary of where we are with the economy, and not doing very well, and although there's recovery in other parts of the country, that we still are lagging behind. And like many of the businesses and public and private sector represented here and the nonprofits, the foundation was also hit economically, also slow to recover. And so, like many of you, we had to think long and hard about, what can we as a foundation offer, or how can we bring added value to the region beyond our, our usual grant making, which the board of the foundation and the leadership decided this is not a time, it would be the worst time to actually retrench as a foundation when needs in the community are higher than ever. And so I feel very fortunate that we have a board that's committed to continuing our grant making, and also looking at other ways, other roles that we might be able to play. So we're always looking for your ideas on that. But one specific area that we have moved into is to really become a philanthropic intermediary. So in addition to our grant making, we are seeing ourselves in that role, and actually have had a little bit of success over the last year as we're embarking in really a new area for the foundation. So what does that mean? So many have been in the nonprofit world for a long time, and also in the public sector, and seeking out funds. And one thing as a foundation we can do is, where there's areas of need in the community or areas of interest, we can be an investor, and we can bring in public and private dollars, so we can be a co-investor on areas to improve health and well-being. So how are we doing in the Sacramento area in terms of our health? So we're a health foundation. You might be wondering, why did SACOG invite a health foundation? What about transportation and the economy and the environment and housing and transportation? So one thing I will say, as a health foundation, as a conversion foundation, while we think about health and healthcare access is really important, we understand, and the research shows, that really at least 85% of people's health really are impacted, not so much by our healthcare system, but by the work that you do. the work that you do in improving the air quality, the work that you do in making accessible, walkable areas, or improving transportation, or helping with the economy so that people have jobs, livable wages, that they can purchase the health insurance, that they have healthy foods that are locally grown and accessible, whether you're going to a store or you're going to the food bank or you're going to a farmer's market that's close by. That's all the work that I know a number of you are involved in, and that's really the work that helps people have access to healthy choices and access to health. And so as a foundation, those are the kinds of programs and projects that we also like to invest in because we think they have real value in helping people be healthy. So that being said, this is, I think many of you are familiar with the county health rankings, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and the University of Wisconsin, these health rankings. So if you look at El Dorado, Placer, and Yolo, they're looking pretty good. And then you look at Sacramento being 31 out of the 58 counties, that's not looking so good. And I think what's disturbing for us, as many of you, and look at Chris especially, that this data is, I have to pick out the 4 people I know. Lisa, you're next. So when you see Sacramento 31 and you know, well, that's not really good. We also know that this data masks a lot of specific populations, and we know that Sacramento's a very richly diverse, ethnically, racially diverse population. And we also know that many of specific communities, especially communities of color, experience disparities in health. And so while we're looking at 31 and a 58 Sacramento for the state, we know for many of communities within Sacramento, it's doing a lot worse. And those are the communities we're particularly interested because although our overall mission is improving health and well-being, we have a particular interest in reducing health disparities in the region and in health equity, which I know is also an interest of many of you as well. You know, a lot of you know this data better than me, but you know, what do we mean by that? And so what are the kinds of issues and health issues that people are suffering from in the region? You know, asthma, no surprise, and diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity, smoking, delayed or not getting care. We also know mental health treatments, an area of concern in our region. And again, these are averages. So when you look at specific ethnic populations or different racial groups, you'll see 2-3 times the rate of dying if you're say an African American male versus a white male. You're more likely to die from heart disease, diabetes, and cancer at astronomical rates, much higher than the general population. So this is the kind of work that we're focusing on, and I think the work that all of you are impacting. And why is this important? Bill, you talked about healthcare being an economic driver, and that's important. We also, our work is, we're actually trying to keep people out of the healthcare system.
This is not the sort of business that we want.
Yeah, this is not the business you want, and I'm very clear on that, given especially all of your other work on promoting health and well-being. So, this talk about impacting the economy in terms of the cost of health disparities, the combined costs for health disparities and premature deaths for minority populations is estimated at $1.24 trillion, just a staggering cost. And we have income and poverty data and wealth data to look at as well. We also are experiencing, and many of you talk about this, what we call this tsunami of chronic disease. And you know, for those of us who have lost loved ones to chronic disease, it impacts us personally and it impacts our families. But we also are looking at the economics of this, and chronic conditions account for 75% of the $2 trillion in annual healthcare costs. These are numbers, I don't even know how to count 2 trillion to 2 trillion. You know, it's just almost hard to imagine, but those are astronomical costs. And we know that prevention can play a huge role in improving people's lives, but also impacting these costs. Well, in our new philanthropic intermediary role, we applied for a federal grant, so a foundation. I thought I left that job applying for those applications. And then I'm here at the foundation, and fortunately we had a tremendous partner who helped us with that journey and organizing the community and actually helping us write the application, and that was Valley Vision. Did a great job, Dale Ainsworth and his team. And I was shocked when I saw the email that Sacramento was selected. Oh my gosh, we actually made it. And we are, so Sacramento County is one of 61 grantees across the country that were selected, paid for through the ACA, the Prevention of Public Health Fund, to go on this move, to be part of this movement, to really push for prevention, not only to improve people's health, but to reduce costs. And so we're part of this brand. I wouldn't call it an experiment because the research is really there that this works. But to be part of 61 communities across the country is pretty exciting, and that Sacramento is a part of this is really important. You saw from the health data before. And what's exciting about being here is the answer to how to actually reduce the chronic disease that they're talking about. And again, I don't want to be a broken record, but it's really a lot of the work that you're doing. And so, so if you have ideas on how we can partner and work together, we are really wanting to hear that. But I think it is congratulations to the country. It actually was a big one for California. Actually, 10 sites in California were selected, and the 61. And so, and of those 10, which I think those of you who have a particular interest in the Central Valley, at least 6 of them were in the Central Valley. So Sacramento, Stanislaus, Fresno, Kern, Ventura sort of off here, and Mono County. And so we are all trying to work together, because sometimes there are things where the collective grouping or collective power where you can kind of leverage your policy and advocacy work that impacts you. So pretty exciting. Cork, what I'm going to ask you to do is, as you look through some of these slides, you can think about your work and how we might work together. I'd be very interested in that. And so the core principle, CTG being Community Transformation Grant, is really maximizing the impact, health impact through prevention. So this is about prevention. I think what's exciting is that our local Congresswoman, Doris Natsui, fought very hard to have prevention as part of the Affordable Care Act. And so I think it's karma that one would land here, to be implemented. And we are, as many of you know, still fighting for those prevention funds. Already they have been slashed previous years. They're at risk right now. And so, and this is the part that actually saves money. So we're perplexed by that. The second principle is really advancing health equity, reducing health disparities, which I spoke about earlier, and really using expanding evidence base for local policy and environmental changes. Aren't I in the right room? There are 5 areas that we'll be working on. This is a 5-year award from the Centers for Disease Control. We are in our first year. The award was in October. What I learned as a foundation is we thought the award day 1, you start day 1. It actually takes 6 to 8 months to get your contracts and everything going. So we are actually now just launching along with the other grantees. But the 5 areas are tobacco-free living, active living and healthy eating, clinical and other preventive services, social and emotional wellness, which is important, especially for Sacramento, given our high needs around mental health, and then healthy and safe physical environment, which I know definitely complements the work that you're doing. Sometimes there can be data and numbers and all that, but for me, it's easier for me to understand when I hear it from the perspective of a family or a person. What does this mean in real time, in real communities? So what do our children experience in our communities? What exactly are we talking about, and where are we trying to go? So this is an example. I heard this story when I was in Atlanta at CDC, the story of Maria, which I thought really framed it very nicely to help me understand, what this is about, where we're going. So I wanted to share it with you. This is Maria. She's 11, 6th grade. And this is Maria's story, or what she experiences in her community, fast foods and the term food deserts, which I know some of you are experts about, but where unhealthy food is just advertised everywhere and it's available everywhere. And we're in a community where it's easier for Maria to get an orange soda than an orange. I don't know if anyone can relate to that or see that in your communities. The second is this issue around sugar-sweetened beverages, and we know that a child's risk for obesity increases 60% with every additional daily serving of soda. It's just incredible. I don't think we think about this. And we're in many of our schools, and I think, is that the case in our area, where 43% of schools have inadequate or no water fountains. So if you don't have alternatives, you don't have a water fountain at school. So I don't know where you all went to school, but you might expect to have water available. For lunch, Maria's school has a lot of fryers, no oven. School vending machines sell candy and soda, no other options. Where 47% attend PE classes, but only 22% of 12th graders were losing our physical activity and exercise in school, and where sedentary screen time is pretty much the norm. And also her story in rural America, you see the limited transportation there, but we know that's not just a rural issue, hearing all of you speak. And if you're in public housing or if you're in living with family members who smoke, just the exposure of secondhand smoke impacts her life. So what's her future? We know that these are things that precede or lead to heart disease and stroke, which is the leading killer in the U.S. and accounts for the largest single portion of racial disparities in life expectancy. We know almost half of people with hypertension have it controlled, but we know that means half do not. And the result, and I heard Terry, earlier speaker, this is the first time for our nation's current generation of children to be the first generation of children that are expected to live shorter lives than their parents. So this is the turning point. So what is this Community Transformation Grant about? It's about a lot of your work. It's about changing unhealthy communities to healthy communities. And so we have to look at, what's our roadmap? How can we we only have 5 years, unless the prevention fund is totally eliminated. Even if it is, that doesn't mean we won't stop because the issues are still there. And so what's our roadmap for maximizing impact? And like your work, a lot of our work focuses on policy change, educating the public, environmental changes, and programmatic changes, and changing the infrastructure. I heard speakers earlier talk about that. How do you change the infrastructure so that people making healthy choices is the easy choice? So we have a coalition, the Healthy Sacramento Coalition. That's your friend Dale up there, Bill. And but we have convened, even though our grant really didn't start much until starting now, we've already convened a few times. We have 300 people who are engaged. There's 60 organizations already signed up and committed to this. And so people are just excited about this. And I think the other thing we have going for us, there's a lot of good work going on in Sacramento. And so there's a lot of good to build on. I don't know that we're all connected though, because I keep learning about this group and this group and this group. And is there a way to bring our siloed effort together in a kind of a collective power? So our next steps is we will be putting together a leadership team, getting the coalition some governance structure. We'll be conducting a community health assessment, and actually Valley Vision is conducting that, along with Sac State. We'll be conducting a policy scan, and ultimately next year at this time, developing a community transformation plan. So those resources, if we're successful, come to Sacramento, and especially in implementation, most of those resources, I think as a foundation, how we see our role is the funding comes in, but then the funding goes back out to the organizations that do the work. And so our job next is to develop a successful community transformation plan. Let me just stop there. Let me just stop stop there. Do you have to wait till the end for questions?
No,
or can
whenever
I,
you want.
any questions about that coalition, or do you see any ways that this complements the work that you're doing?
What sort of organizations are in that?
Oh, okay. That's a great question. I'm going to answer and then I'm going to refer you to the website because we actually kind of put them all on there. But there's a range from policymaker organizations to community-based organizations that are already doing this work. You know, when I look around the room, you know, Terry's attending and has been attending, and so organizations that are committed to improving health and well-being, but also health disparities. And so they're already positioned within the community to do this work. And I think their hope is that this kind of brings it at this level so we can work together more effectively. Also, all of the health systems are involved in attend. Not all of them. The 4 major health systems are all in attendance. Many of the community clinics are in attendance. We have some education folks. We have state government. Here we are in Sacramento. So the controller's office actually was a big supporter. When you think about all the state employees who live in Sacramento and their impact on the economics of health in the region, and so they have some ideas of how to work together. So we actually posted our application online, and we posted the list of organizations that wrote letters of support. So you're welcome to go on our website and just look at the entire list. Any other questions? The other effort that I think has some relevance to the work here is our Sacramento Region Healthcare Partnership, which was put together last year. It was put together at the encouragement of various regional leaders. Given healthcare reform, we will have a tsunami of people in the region, over 200,000, that will have health insurance that didn't before in our 4-county area. So we since Sierra Health plays this convening role of bringing stakeholders together, we were asked to play this role to bring together the key stakeholders to really look at the capacity in our region and what's our plan to move us forward. If you look at this, if you look at 2009, there's 303,000 people in the 4-county area, Sacramento, El Dorado, Placer, and Yolo, who are uninsured. And if you look at 2014, that number should go to about 75,000 should health reform be effective. That's a lot of people that are going to have health insurance who didn't have it before. Where are they going? Sure. Well, the important question is, where do they get care now? Where do you think they get care now? So we did the market analysis that's being conducted is almost complete. And so when we looked at who goes to emergency rooms and where this cost that Bill was talking about, 40% of those visits to the ER room really didn't need to be an ER visit. You know, had they had primary care or access to appropriate medical care outside of the hospital room, they really didn't need to show up in the ER room. So that's something that we're looking at as well. Another effort that we're recently involved in is called Respite Partnership Collaborative. Many of you who live in the area know folks with mental health issues end up in the ER room or end up hurting themselves or others. When if they just could have been provided some respite care or some time out care, may not have ended up there. So a new partnership we have right now is with Sacramento County. It's the MHSA Prop 63 Innovation Funds, and Sierra Health will be the administrative entity using the foundation's grant-making infrastructure to get dollars out to community-based organizations. And we are putting together a collaborative, which will be it's an application process. The deadline is passed. Those applications are being reviewed. And this is something new for the foundation. So actually, this is the group that will design the RFP and actually review the applications and make decisions about who in the county gets funded. So that's a different role for the foundation. I also wanted to let you know, for talked about looking for resources. One of our programs, probably our most popular program because it's flexible funding, it's not like tied to something, is our responsive grants program. And we have people, organizations, nonprofits can apply, and public agencies can apply for up to $25,000. And the only criteria is improving health and well-being in the region. And so we look for innovative ideas or ideas that make sense given your jurisdiction or your community. And it's open to our 26 county funding region. We've distributed about $4 million over the last 3 years. It's very competitive, I will tell you that. We receive 200, 300, 400 applications, sometimes at a time. And so, so people just keep trying and finally they make it through the door, or they don't. But it has, we have seen some really tremendous and great work and ideas throughout the region from these applications. So that's a program that you might want to be familiar with if it might help in your work. We also have what's called a public policy and education program. It's more by invitation or there's an idea or something that we think is important for the region. It's how we commissioned the Healthy Youth, Healthy Region study that the Center for Regional Change did at UC Davis. It's how we invested in a new electronic personal health record for homeless youth through WIND. And so we embarked on a lot of different things through the public policy and education program where people just maybe need small amounts of dollars to bring people together to do some thoughtful planning. And then lastly we launched an initiative 2 weeks ago called Positive Youth Justice Initiative. You've heard about all the changes going from young people not being in prison at the state level, but pushing them back into communities. And this provides this is an initiative that will help up to 6 local jurisdictions embark on looking at their operational systems, looking at how they assess young people coming into the system, but also provide some treatment and resources for young people. 70 to 90% of young people entering the juvenile justice system have experienced some sort of trauma. And a lot of times that is not dealt with, and there's a lot of recidivism of going back and forth. We'll be focusing on a particularly vulnerable population, young people who have been in the child welfare system and now are entering the juvenile justice system. And we know with no intervention, the likelihood of having good health or good education or a job is highly unlikely. And so this is actually the first time Sierra Health is undertaking a statewide initiative, and so we have invited 17 local jurisdictions to apply. We had our kickoff on April 10th, and we'll be releasing the RFP in early May, and we hope to get some good applications. This is a partnership also with the California Endowment, and there's a few other foundations that are hoping to join in and be a co-funder. This work was actually informed by data that we saw in our Healthy Youth, Healthy Region report, that we need to be more deliberate also about focusing on specific populations, and also our Renewing Juvenile Justice report, which looked at the whole history of what was supposed to be rehabilitation in our juvenile justice system and how it's become more about incarceration but not rehabilitation. So the research has informed this initiative, and we're pretty excited about it. And was it Terry or talking about young people? Most of the work around in the foundation has been focused around the health and well-being of young people. Yeah, I think that's it, what I have for presentation. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
I just want to say I think it's great that you've got that community transformation grant from CDC, because that's what we've been hearing. That if we're going to go at any time towards national health care, it's going to be prevention and suicide versus hospitals.
We're really very excited for the region. It looked like we weren't going to be able to apply as a county, and so when we showed up, so the 61 grantees, most are state health departments, county health departments, and tribal organization. There's a few nonprofits, and then there's one foundation. So, so we hope to represent you well. But it's really our grant. It's our community grant. So the foundation played a role partnering with other organizations to bring it in, but it really is a community. It's a community grant.
Jennifer, would you far as your stakeholders for the community transformation grant, do you feel that you're wanting today to reach out in particular, or kind of give the call to who's missing and encourage them to show up? Can you, I don't know if that's off the
You're
top of
really
your
good,
head.
yeah. So the next meeting is all posted on the website. It's usually like the fourth Wednesday or Thursday of each month. And we actually, like I said, a lot of you are new faces here that I'm not familiar with. The sectors that you represent, given the earlier discussions, are sectors that we need. I mean, that's how we do the prevention. If you don't have safe streets, you don't have transportation, you don't have clean air, you don't have access to healthy food, you know, we will not move forward. So we really are looking for your partnership. I really would encourage you, if you are interested, SierraHealth.org is our website. There is a thing that says Healthy Sacramento Coalition. There's a place just to sign up to be on our mailing list, so you'll know, and the meetings are all posted. I hope that some of you will think about ways to partner with us and how we can partner with you. Thank you, Monica. Any other questions? It's time for dinner. Thank you very much.
I want to thank all of our speakers today. Another round of applause. And thank all of you for being here today. Really, you are the leaders that help keep this project going forward. And I neglected to mention that the Health Inequity Working Group will be starting back up later this summer as we delve into the housing topic, which is the next big part of our grant work as we complete the other pieces that were in our grant application to HUD. So stay tuned for that, and thank you again for attending. We look forward to seeing you at our workshops coming up on May 23rd and 24th. Thank you. Very involved.